Melissa, a fourth-year drama teacher in an elementary school, and today I'm going to be talking about behavior management in a drama classroom. A lot of the tips I'm going to be giving today are not just specific to drama. A lot of them will work in whatever you're teaching. I'm specifically talking about drama just because that's what I know, that's what I teach, and also I do know that specials classes in particular, sometimes behavior management can be a little trickier for many reasons than a regular classroom teacher. And then on top of that, things like drama specifically, where a lot of times we're asking kids to be expressive and to project their voices and to do some really silly things. I'm just going to talk about how we balance that and the nature of what we're teaching and the fun of what we're teaching with also having a kind of controlled chaos classroom, if you will. Just because I am an elementary school teacher, it will be geared more towards elementary. However, I have used these same tactics when I've directed middle school. Last year I directed a musical for middle school, and a lot of these worked for them as well. So a lot of them, they're not really age specific, and then if you think they are, if something would be too condescending for your kids or whatever, you can find a way to adapt it to their age group. Behavior management is always something that I'm not going to say I've struggled with, but I've struggled to see myself as an authority over it, because even when a classroom is well managed, I'm not sure if it's anything that I'm doing or if it's just that it's good kids. It's hard for me to pinpoint what makes a well-managed drama classroom. And sometimes I have to find in myself who I am as a teacher, because I am different than a normal teacher and I am teaching them different things, and drama and movement specifically is more open to creativity, and you don't want to become too stifling. So this might be the perfect time in the day to let them be a little more wiggly than usual, let them be a little louder than usual, especially because I am teaching drama. I remember my first year I had this defining moment where I was teaching them about tap dancing, and we were watching Gene Kelly videos, and they were watching Gene Kelly tap dancing, and this little kindergarten kid, he just gets up and he starts tapping. I don't know if you can see me, but he starts tapping on the carpet, and the teacher in me was like, oh my gosh, like, I should get him to sit down right away. I should tell him to stop. And then the artist in me was like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. The fact that he's watching Gene Kelly and that is inspiring him to imitate what he is seeing. That's inspiring him to dance. It's inspiring him to perform. Without further ado, I'm going to start with my 10 tips for behavior management in a drama classroom. Tip number 1 is have some kind of call and response for your students. If you're studying to be a teacher of any subject, I'm sure you've seen this in all of your observations. For example, the school I student taught at, they had a school-wide one, which was stop, look, and listen. So a teacher would say stop, look, and listen, and then all the kids would go, okay, and then everybody would be ready to go, and it worked really well. And literally, I saw the drama teacher use it, I saw the classroom teachers use it, and it was just this nice unifying way to get everyone to be quiet and listen to what was going on. For me, in my classroom, I did want to have something specific to drama class. I wanted to have something that was connected to drama, so I came up with, I say lights, camera, and they say action. I used lights, camera, action last year with the middle schoolers, and it worked like a charm with them as well. Something else I used with the middle schoolers, just because I was directing a musical with 60 of them, it would obviously hurt my voice to say it that loudly every time, and we were in a huge auditorium for most of the time, so I did the old-fashioned, and then they would have to repeat. So doing the claps is really good, especially when your voice is tired, because you're able to just do a beat and they repeat. And the cool thing about the claps is that you just repeat until they're quiet. So with lights, camera, action, it really only works once. If you have to do it multiple times, it doesn't seem as effective. Whereas something like the claps, you can just keep going and stomp your feet and do whatever until you finally have every single person's attention. One drama teacher I know, she used a hush fell over the crowd, and the whole class goes, hush! Anything. It can be something you make up on your own. It could be something you get from another teacher. It could be one of the ones I just told you. But a call and response, really helpful and important. Number 2 is to have a visual for them somewhere in your classroom that reminds them how they're supposed to be behaving. For example, this is mine. I call these my audience reminders. My eyes are watching, my ears are listening, my mouth is closed. Third tip goes along with my visual that I have on the wall. As drama teachers, we have a huge advantage in that part of our curriculum is teaching audience etiquette. So the fact that that's actually something that we're supposed to be talking about as drama teachers, that's teaching them about theater, the fact that we have that is just so helpful when it comes to behavior management, because it's a lot better to say, oh, just so we know, we have to be an audience now. Explain to me what audience etiquette is. We are at the theater. We're watching a peer perform. That is so much better than, oh, what are the class rules? Just because it doesn't feel like they have rules upon them. Audience etiquette sounds a lot better. It just sounds like it's their responsibility. It's their job to be the audience. It's their role. So it's just a nicer way to refer to everything. It doesn't feel as strict and as school-like, if you will. Number 4 is to honestly explain things. And I know that gets really hard. It almost gets controversial, especially people talk about this with parenting, is that parents shouldn't have to explain themselves and it should just be because I said so and because I'm the adult. And honestly, even as a teacher, I feel like that sometimes, like, I don't want to explain everything, just listen to me. But honestly, I've tried my best to start explaining, and I notice that I get better results if I explain why there is a specific rule or why I'm saying something. So for example, if someone is talking in the middle of someone else's performance, I'll stop everything and say, hey, just so you know, the person next to you can't hear that person's performance and because you're talking. Or just so you know, that person worked really hard to perform something for us, and it feels disrespectful when you're talking in the middle of their performance. When we teach drama, we're teaching empathy, and just having an empathetic classroom and being able to think about other people's feelings and express, oh, what could your actions cause in other people, rather than just stop talking. It just seems a lot more of a discussion, and it just feels like it hits home a lot faster. So it is extra time to explain yourself, but I feel like it is worth it because I believe I get less behavioral issues when I've framed something a certain way. When I framed it as, hey, we don't talk during someone's performance because their audience members won't be able to hear, and because it would hurt their feelings because they're performing and they want to feel like they have a good audience who's listening to them. Usually the reasons actually really make sense, even to the kids. Oh, I can't do this because I could hurt myself. Oh, I shouldn't do this because I could hurt someone else's feelings. I shouldn't do this because I could break something that's important to this school. I shouldn't sit like this when I'm watching a video because I am blocking the person behind me and they want to see it too. So just giving them those little explanations so it feels less like you're attacking them and more as if, oh, maybe you just didn't know, this is why we do this. And that just seems to help me a lot as a teacher. Tip number 5, it isn't actually much about the students. This tip is actually more about you as a teacher, is that you have to be engaging your students. I'm not saying that because in any condescending way, because honestly, especially if you're a classroom teacher, you have them all day, and it's really hard to expect classroom teachers to be super engaging for the entire day, every single lesson they do. It's a little easier for us specials teachers because our lessons are very like, okay, this is my lesson, I know I have to engage them for this amount of time, rather than being with kids for an entire day. However, it is really obvious, even for me as a specials teacher, that when they are having fun, when they are excited, when they are learning something in an engaging way, I have way less behavioral issues than when I'm lecturing or when I'm showing them something that is not really too fun for them. I have to find fun ways to teach them things. So it's not that when they walk into drama, we're just going to play charades for the entire time because they love it. It's because if I'm teaching something like vocab or theater jobs or something, or the types of stages, I've had to find games to help them engage with the material. I've had to find, well, let's play a memory game. Let's play heads up with the theater jobs. Let's draw the different kinds of stages. Let's have a challenge. Let's do all these things so that they're not fidgeting, they're not misbehaving, they're not talking too much, they're not doing anything they shouldn't be doing, because honestly, when kids are having an amazing time, they don't think about misbehaving because they are loving what you're having them doing, and it just makes your job so much easier. So it seems tougher when you first say it, like, oh, I have to make every lesson so engaging, but I just avoiding a lot of behavioral issues by having engaging lessons. Tip number 6 is build relationships with the students. And this is something that is a little harder for specials teachers just because we don't see the same 20-something kids for an entire day. We see 500 kids for a limited amount of time every week. So how can we be expected to cultivate those kind of relationships in that short amount of time? What I try to do is whenever I see a kid in the hallway, that's my best friend. Oh my goodness, how are you doing? How was your weekend? I'm so glad to see you. Honestly, kids get really excited when I just wave at them just because they're excited that I'm excited to see them. So little things like that. It doesn't have to be anything huge. You don't have to have time to stop and have a huge conversation with every student you see in the hallway. But honestly, it does help. I have noticed with specific students that give me a little bit more trouble during class. I have been able to lessen it. I'm not going to say erase it, but I've been able to lessen those behaviors just by giving them a little bit extra attention when I do see them in the hallway. They do want to be liked. They do want to be loved by you, no matter what. That's something that all little kids crave. So if they feel like you do like them, they're going to try their best not to disappoint you. They're not going to want to stop you from liking them, if that makes any sense. Number 7 is to start every kid off in your head with a clean slate. And that's really hard to do. It almost seems counterintuitive because if a kid behaves a certain way, you almost want to prepare yourself for that kind of behavior every time they walk into a room, like, okay, I need to have my guard up because this kid is here. But honestly, I've had more success starting kids off at a clean slate, making them feel like I'm expecting them to be great. I feel like kids tend to meet your expectations, and if they think that you are prepared for them to act a certain way, they feel more like they can do it. Well, that's how everyone sees me anyway. But honestly, it just seems nicer to start kids off at a clean slate because just like adults, just because we mess up one day doesn't mean we're going to mess up every other day. That's kind of a bleak outlook to have on humans. So I try my best to not label a kid too much. I know there's sometimes it's really hard not to, but I try my best not to label a kid and have that stick in my head because I don't want to have that attitude about someone. Teachers always talk about having a growth mindset with learning, but also with behavior. That kid didn't behave that well today, but they can always do better tomorrow, and just reminding yourself of that. Tip number 8 is something I struggled a lot with my first year, and it was stand by your word. Another way of saying that is to actually follow through with any consequences, and that's another difficult thing for specials teachers because we only see them for this amount of time. It's really hard to give them consequences for behavior that go outside of this classroom. My first year I had a lot of trouble. I would just say consequences to just try to scare the kids and make them behave, and even if it worked in the moment, the consequence would never happen because I never followed through with it. So don't tell kids you're going to tell their teacher this. Don't tell kids you're going to call their parents. Don't tell kids that you're going to make them do this, this, or that without actually having the intention of doing it. So it needs to be something you're able to do. It needs to be something that you think is necessary. So something you shouldn't do is, oh, they're doing something kind of bad. I'm going to threaten them with this huge consequence that would be a huge overreaction to what they're doing just so they stop. First of all, if you do that consequence, it's not going to make sense because it's going to be an overreaction. And then second of all, if you tell them that just to scare them, but then don't do that, they'll notice. They're going to know she never called my parents. So your word is going to mean so much less when kids realize that you're doing that. Number 9 is positive reinforcement, and that is something that I'm sure every prospective teacher has learned in their programs and everything, but honestly, it does work. And a lot of people see positive reinforcement in giving rewards to certain kids, which it kind of is, but also positive reinforcement can just be like, oh, I've noticed that Sally is sitting quietly. That is so great. Literally, it's so funny. I don't know how well this works for older kids because I only have ever used it with my elementary kids, but it works really well for elementary kids because if I just start saying kids' names and going, oh my goodness, I love the way Johnny is sitting with his hands on his lap and has his mouth closed and he's ready to be an audience, just saying that, all the other kids want to have their name said too, so they'll look at that kid and go, oh, okay. So honestly, it works a lot better than I thought it would. I remember learning about it in grad school going like, oh, that sounds too simple. I'm sure that's not going to work. But honestly, it works most of the time if you just start naming kids and giving them excessive praise for just doing what they're supposed to do and how well they are on the hallway, how quiet are they. It's so funny how well it works. But yeah, positive reinforcement can also be actual rewards. I don't have a reward system for my class just because I teach every single class. Like what I said with consequences, if you're going to tell a kid you're giving them a reward, you have to give them the reward. You can't just say it and then not do it, because if they ever notice that, they're not going to take it seriously anymore, and that tactic is just not going to work anymore. And my final tip number 10, is to know your backup, to know your support. I feel like a lot of teachers, especially first year teachers, they're really scared to ask for help when it comes to behavior, just because they feel like, oh, it's going to seem like I'm a bad teacher. It's going to feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Honestly, there are some behaviors that every teacher is going to need support on. There are some behaviors, like someone's hitting or someone's getting violent, someone's throwing things. I had a kid move furniture once. If it's ever that bad, you are not doing anyone any favor by trying to solve it by yourself, because honestly, everyone will be so much safer if you call someone. A kid runs out of your classroom, you can't go after them, so you have to know who to call. You have to know who's there for you. I am very lucky in that my admin, I've never felt like they've judged me when I've called them. I've never felt like they look down upon me, or that they're like, oh, you could have just handled this yourself, or oh, you need help, that means you must not be a good teacher. I always feel like they're like, okay, what do you need? Okay, they're just ready to be there with you, and they understand that if you're calling, it's for a good reason. Even just asking another teacher, so hey, I've noticed that this kid behaves really well in your class, or I've noticed that you have a really good relationship with them and they don't misbehave for you as much. Can you tell me some things that have worked for you? And a lot of teachers, especially new teachers, are scared of that because they don't like admitting that they don't have everything figured out. But honestly, I think it's more of a personality thing like anything else. I don't think I've ever seen a teacher that has an amazing relationship with every single student. It's kind of like a give and take. Like, okay, there's a certain group of students that don't behave in other classes that I have a great rapport with, and then there's other students that I cannot reach that this teacher has a great rapport with. I think that it's just which personalities match with the kid and who's been able to cultivate this kind of relationship, how long they've known the kid. Sometimes it has nothing to do with your competency as a teacher. So as long as you have a staff that's supportive and understands that, there is absolutely no shame in asking other people for help or advice. Have a counselor, if they have someone in the school that is in charge of managing their behavior or anything like that, asking them for help as well, asking them for tactics that they know work with that kid. Hopefully you'll get help, and that'll make your life easier, it'll make hopefully the student's life easier, and it'll make for a better work environment for you in general. That's it. Those are my 10 tips for behavioral management in a drama classroom, but like I said, this is relevant for any teacher teaching any classroom or any subject, especially specials teachers. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!